Avant de vous présenter nos panélistes, et nous avons
Before,
la chance d'avoir
now I'm going to
trois
present
panélistes en
panel members. We have three
présentiel
panel
et
members with us
beaucoup
physically
d'autres de
today, and others are on
Méditerranée.
the other shores of
N'hésitez
the
pas, il y a un
Mediterranean.
live stream
There's a live
sur
stream,
notre
of course,
plateforme,
on our platform,
notamment sur EventMaker. On a aussi
on
fait un
the
Facebook
EventMaker.
Live
We
qui est
also have
très
a
suivi.
Facebook Live, which is
N'hésitez
being
pas
followed by
à
lots
nous
and lots of
suivre, à
people, so
partager,
don't
à
hesitate to
réagir.
follow and
C'est
react
vraiment
to what we're doing.
important que vous
It's very
puissiez
important for
réagir.
you to be able
Et
to
je vais
interact
commencer
with us.
par présenter
And we'd like to
nos
start by
intervenants, à
presenting
commencer
our
par
speakers.
Patricia
We
Rica.
start with
Bonjour
Patricia
Patricia, qui est
Rica.
la présidente de
You're
l'Institut
the president of the Paul Ricard Oceanographic Institute and the leader for France of the Two Shores Summit.
J'accueille également Sarah Toumi.
We also have Sarah Toumi.
qui est
Sarah Toumi
membre du
is
Conseil
a member
présidentiel
of
pour
the
l'Afrique,
Presidential Council for Africa,
qui elle va se connecter tout dans
who
très peu de
is
temps.
going to be connecting up very soon. We have Isadora Bigourdan, who is the Senior Project Manager at the French Development Agency. Hello, Isadora.
Jean-Marc Philippe, qui est le
We have
président
Jean-Marc
d'Ocean
Philippe, who is the
et qui
president of
représente
Ocean,
aussi la
and who
Société
is
du
also
Canal
representing
de Provence, qui
the
mène
Canal de
beaucoup
Provence
d'actions
company,
de
which
développement
carries a lot
en
of
Méditerranée.
sustainable
Bonjour,
development
Samia.
actions in the
Bonjour,
Mediterranean
Jean-Marc.
region.
Nous
Hello,
avons
Samia.
également la chance d'avoir avec nous
We're also
Mohamed
lucky to
Tabiaoui,
have
qui est le
Mohamed Tabioui with us, who is the
et
founder
lauréat
and the prize winner founder of Prix Software and the prize winner. This is very important of the AFD Digital Challenge. And we also have Amour Sarnoun, who is also going to be joining us in a moment. He's with us. He's the...
alors, non, excusez-moi. Amour, je vous ai cité. Non, c'est Mohamed Tabiaoui que nous cherchons.
We're looking for Mohamed Tabiaoui.
Est parmi nous.
Is Mohamed with us?
Tout à fait, je suis là.
I'm here. That's me.
Mohamed, qui est aussi lauréat AFD Digital Challenge.
Mohamed is also the winner of the AFD Digital Challenge as well. There's two of them. There we have Mohamed. Excellent.
Mais tout de suite, je vais commencer avant de rentrer dans
Before we start our discussion and talk about your projects, you know that today the COVID-19 pandemic causes a lot of problems, and the problem that caused this pandemic is the problem of the zoonosis. And this is a multifactorial crisis. But one of the questions that is raised is the question of the disappearance of biodiversity. I know that for you, Patricia, you have a lot of things to say to us about that. There's also the question of how we can make entrepreneurship a driving force to promote the agenda of biodiversity. We've seen with Emerging Mediterranean, out of 227 applications, 1/3 of those were in the area of biodiversity, how to protect biodiversity, the environment in the Mediterranean. And this leads me on to the question, which is today, how can digital be an accelerator for sustainable development? How can we move on from the Millennium Development Goals, and how can the Mediterranean become a unique laboratory in the world, which can inspire other continents, starting with Europe and Africa? Patricia, as I said earlier, you are an activist, and you've been engaged for many years in the fight to protect the Mediterranean and biodiversity. We know that you've done a huge amount of work in the part of the Summit of the Two Shores.
Comment aujourd'hui, quand on regarde ce qui nous arrive,
we look at what is happening to us and we look at the challenges that are raised. First of all, how can we remain optimistic? Please tell us that. And also, what do we need to look at? What do we need to tackle together to deal with these challenges? First of all, thank you very much for inviting me to participate, Samia, in this Emerging Mediterranean Forum. The answer is based on three fundamental priorities, which is to protect the climate, the ocean, and biodiversity. This is a nexus which everything else turns around and depends upon. Digital technology here plays an important role. The Millennium Development Goals, the MDGs, are the instructions for use, if you like, that we have to follow. But this path has to be taken much more quickly and by a lot more people simultaneously. Here we have the acceleration of digital, which is very meaningful and helps this to be achieved. We have a major challenge, which is education in sustainable development. And although today you might want to take up these challenges, most of the courses in academic institutions are not up to date in this sense compared to what young people are doing in the field, in the digital technology. I think digital technology can be a very useful tool to help us achieve these MDGs. Another important thing is the science for sustainability. This is a more complex area. The MDGs, we had 17 of these. They were very well structured in each silo with subsections, had 17 and 169 sub-goals. We now realize that we have to integrate all of these things together, and this makes the whole thing rather complex and difficult to manage, and with digital technology it helps us to do that, and by working together in co-construction to co-build our solutions in a transverse and transdisciplinary way, this can help to achieve great results. The digital technology and the generations using digital technology are the best placed to really make a difference. Okay, we've already heard some of them. We're going to continue listening to their pitches throughout the day, and it was very important for me to start with you, for you to give us this vision, this subject which is very dear to your heart. Yes, I'd like to add something else. People often find it difficult to differentiate between the economy and biodiversity. There's a lot of links between the two. Biodiversity is everything to do with the economy. It's going to be food production for plants, it's going to be arts and crafts, it's going to be animal husbandry, landscape management, whether it's for food or whatever. Biodiversity is the foundation of the economy. It's not just pretty little gazelles and lions, etc. It really is the basis for the whole of our economy in our countries. Thank you, Patricia. We'll now move on to see how can we react, how can we multiply the effective actions in the field. Before I hand over to our two startups here, Mohamed Tabayoui and Amar Sahnoun. Mohamed Tabayoui, you are the founder of BevDev and the head of Boo Software at the moment. I'd like to hand over to Jean-Marc Philippe, because I should remind you that this plenary on the O3Ds, on sustainable development in digital, has been set up with the support of the AFD Digital Challenge, with the support of the Bouches-du-Rhône General Council. It's important that you should be here because the department of the Bouches-du-Rhône is the largest agricultural department in the whole of France. A lot of experiments we can carry out here to share our experience and learn from the experiences on the other shore of the Mediterranean. You're at the head of Ocean, and you're head of the Canal de Provence company. With the support of the district council, you are trying to solve the problem of access to water. Today, how can you tell us about the Ocean solution and how you implement these actions in the Mediterranean from Marseille?
Thank you very much, Samir. Hello, everyone. Well, there is a specific community in the Mediterranean all about accessing water. Our friends in Mauritania, Libya, Tunisia, Morocco have these same issues on the north shore of the Mediterranean. They don't necessarily have access to water all throughout the year. Well, how did the people do this in the past? Well, they managed to figure out solutions. Marseille is a fantastic laboratory for dealing with this because we are not too far away from the Alps, which provide us with very clean water, and there are other opportunities for drinkable water which come right down to us. In Northern Africa, the situation, however, is not necessarily the same. In the north shore of the Mediterranean, the political institutions have been asking themselves these questions for very long. How can we get water to users in farming or end users, individual people in their homes? The situation is exactly the same in Mauritania and Libya, or in Morocco, Tunisia, or Algeria. The question of transferring water to end users is very relevant. Just to answer your question, the question which is being innovated very much in Europe is all about the management of water in the basin. how can we make every single drop of water useful and not wasted? Universities and companies like African Link, which have links to other companies, have been asking themselves this question: how can they innovate the question of accessing water? We have water, food, energy. We talked about health earlier on. All of these things are linked in with water. Of course, it is the most basic element that exists. If I could just link it back to what happens in Africa, hopefully we're able to copy what happens in terms of the solutions that have been come up with in Europe. Absolutely. There are many great things happening in Mediterranean to do with access to water. We're going to go over to Isabelle Bugourdon in just a minute, but first of all, we're going to start with Mr. Mohamed. First of all, I'd like to congratulate you. Big Software and PrevDev is the name of your company, and you won the AFD Digital Challenge. I would just like to start by talking to you and your colleague. Could you please just start by introducing to us your solution, explaining it to us so that we understand, and explaining how your startup contributes to the emergence of what we call smart Mediterranean cities? Thank you so much. I'm very happy to be here with you all. The solution I created... Excuse me, I can hear myself talking. Is it possible to get rid of it? I have an echo. Can you hear me?
Oui, c'est bon. C'est les joies du direct. C'est en train d'être réglé.
It's being sorted out, Mr. Tabioui. So my solution is called INDAB. It is a system for predicting and early warning systems for floods. What the solution has done is enabled people to become more aware about the risks of floods and prepare themselves better in advance to come up with solutions to help with evacuation and protection. Developing smart cities is a good question. It's really a very intelligent city which will enable people to have better lives because things like energy and transport and waste collection will be managed better. They really will be optimized. You should also bear in mind that resilience is part of these issues in terms of making cities secure. Smart cities are sometimes difficult to create easily because there are many different aspects which need to be optimized beforehand. My solution reinforces the security aspects in a very clever way because people are warned beforehand via digital technology. Of course, digital technology is a very important aspect of it, because people can see, for example, how when they're driving their cars, whether or not the roads are being blocked off in advance. This gives them early warnings thanks to technology. So there is a huge amount of opportunity. We also want to improve the devices and systems that are currently in place by providing our solution. We want to gain access to databases so that we can analyze them and help improve our solution. When we talk about prediction, we're also talking about early warning. That's how my solution can contribute to the idea of a smart Mediterranean city. Thank you so much, Mohamed. That's very inspiring. We're going to go on next to Bus Software, run by Mr. Amor. How does your solution help the emergence of smart Mediterranean cities? And then we'll look with Isadora about how we can labelize programs, specifically the one that you won, the AFD Smart Challenge, the Digital Smart Challenge. Thank you so much, Semir. It's an honor to be here with you today. My name is Amour. I am the CEO of Bus Software. Can you all hear me okay?
Oui, oui, très bien. Très bien, Amour.
Yes, we can hear you, Mr. Sarnoun. You can go ahead. So I'm the CEO and co-founder of Bus Software. It's a Tunisian startup, and our solution is all about coming up with new intelligent ways of transport, specifically public transport. If we're talking about smart cities, we cannot ignore the idea of public transport, which is a quintessential element of any city. We've been working on this for 4 years, and we have come up with a digital solution which is divided up into 4 different issues. And this affects the quality of the service for millions of transport users directly. The first issue is ticket offices, which up until now has been done manually, which really is a big waste of money and time. The second issue is the absence of real statistics, which really slows down decision-making and makes it a lot more difficult. The third is the absence of access to information for citizens. That's really one of the most important aspects, because if citizens do not have access to timetables and other information about public transport, then it really complicates things very much. This is the first issue that we want to address when we talk about connected cities. Therefore, we've come up with a solution to help transport and travelers. The fourth issue is that we've been working with a research laboratory in Tunisia called Miracle Laboratories. I'd just like to thank them for the help that they've been giving us. They've come up with a solution which uses artificial intelligence and has created automated self-driving buses. We have Isadora from the French Development Agency. She's here with us. Isadora is also one of the panelists of the jury. Well done to the winners of the French Development Agency's Digital Challenge. Just like to congratulate you here today. Well done. You are the two Mediterranean companies of the group. In the Digital Challenge, there were these 2 Mediterranean companies which were included in the system, and therefore that's great that they've been able to be here with us today. How does the Digital Challenge communicate the ideas of the French Development Agency? How does it give more sense to the commitment to sustainable development through entrepreneurs? Thank you very much, Semir. I'm so happy to be here with everyone. So first of all, I'd just like to explain the FDA has many millions of euros of funds in Europe and Africa. All of the projects that we finance or support for inclusive societies and positive impact on cities in the territories. What we work on with entrepreneurship is that we actually go and look for inspiration from countries and companies in Africa that are working, who are trying to come up with real solutions to issues that we are all faced with today. We can all see that it's really important to come up with ingenious solutions in a frugal manner to help with current issues. Companies need to be flexible and be able to bounce back from difficult times. Need to be able to address collective issues and be more inclusive. This is something that we've seen during the COVID crisis. All of the entrepreneurs that we work with have been able to adapt to the crisis and come up with solutions which have better impact to help their citizens. Things like producing masks, helping manage schools and collecting children from schools. At the FDA, the digital challenge was part of the dynamic that I just talked about. We wanted to inspire companies, startups to come up with new solutions for smart cities. In the past, we've also worked on inclusion so that women are more included in business and gain access to education. The idea was really to highlight companies that are in their startup phases. The program works in a value chain logic. We want to give opportunities to young startups. We also have a program called the Social and Inclusive Business Camp, where we will be welcoming the winners of the Emerging Mediterranean program and mentoring them. We will be supporting them to come up with a real structure for their businesses. Sometimes startups don't manage to make much development because they don't have an expert there helping them. That is what we're there for. A lot of it is to do with financing, and that's something that we really take very seriously. We have investment funds which we give to startups. We've been working with around 360 startups and supporting them throughout their business journey so that they can become small and medium enterprises and have a very positive impact on the ecosystems that they inhabit. Every time we do calls for applications, technology is always a hugely positive part of all of it, because it's an essential part of anything these days. We've seen that some of the winners of the digital challenge are incredibly ingenious. They've come up with ideas like recycling waste. Yes, just to clarify, these are the pre-selected 10 finalists that will be here with us today. They have very ingenious solutions that are just inspiring. It's something that we see and we think, wow, this is something incredible. They've been asking themselves, how can they sign up to a circular economy? This type of startup is giving new opportunities to things that other people just throw away, like how to recycle plastic. And they've therefore been creating circular models. The digital challenge, it's true that it's part of a wider scale of programs where we try to actually make our programs evolve to make them more effective and efficient for the startups that we support. The digital challenge concretely has a real impact on boosting initiatives such as green initiatives and smart cities, and giving opportunities to startups and improve their visibility to investors. Samir, could I just say hi to a colleague? She was here with us last year. Hello. I'd just like to say hello to Sarah. Yes, I was just about to come to Sarah. She is the chairwoman of Acacias for All. It's a real pleasure for her to be here with us today. She was on the SIBC program in 2019. And now she's a member of the Presidential Council for Africa, which has been launched by Mr. Macron. I'd just like to ask you, please, what are the Mediterranean, specifically Mediterranean projects which have inspired you? And what is the roadmap for the organization you work with in terms of sustainable development? Hello, thank you so much, Semir. Hello, everyone. Okay, I can hear an echo as well. I'm so glad to be here with you again this year again. Unfortunately, I'm not able to be there with you in person, but fortunately, I'm able to join you online. Your question, Samir, is the thing is, I'm not going to answer your question in much detail because I'm a very humble person. I want a challenge, but yes, I'm just like everyone else. The thing is, absolutely, we've been able to see during the crisis how much the Mediterranean has been able to come up with real answers to the big issues that everyone's been asking themselves throughout this period. The thing is, it's not surprising, though, because the Mediterranean is the central point of many different civilizations and the bridge between the two sides of Europe and Africa. Therefore, it has a very important place in digital ecosystems. The Mediterranean is like a world of innovation just in itself. We have supported young people, entrepreneurs, professors for projects like manufacturing masks, coming up with new ways of managing logistical data flows. These have been incredible innovations, just like Isadora said, and people have come up with them so quickly as well. They've been very reactive. So for the Presidential Council for Africa, our role is really to lead the way for these innovators and to come up with strategies. Okay, we are having a slight connection issue again. Can you get it back for us, please? Okay, I think it should be back with us in 2 seconds. We'll cross our fingers. I think we're going to be coming back to Sarah in just a minute. We talk a lot about the Mediterranean, but sometimes we forget that the Mediterranean is a sea. You are the head of the Paul Ricard Oceanographic Institute, and you work specifically on everything to do with oceans and seas. Regarding environmental solutions and projects in the Mediterranean, could you please give us a few numbers about the Paul Ricard Oceanographic Institute, and what do you implement today to resolve the issues to do with reducing pollution in the Mediterranean, and how can we improve the situation? So the Mediterranean is 1% of the world volume of oceans. The Mediterranean is just one small ocean, one small sea amongst many different oceans. The Mediterranean is a great big basin which is emptied once per year. The Mediterranean has many different species which are indigenous to the region. Many people forget that the world oceans, including the Mediterranean, produces over 50% of the oxygen in the world. It's not just the forests which do it. The ocean absorbs residual heat, which we've been producing more and more for many, many years. Without these oceans, the temperature of the world would be about 5 or 6 degrees hotter. I think that it's an important factor of stopping climate change. Plankton and other plants in the oceans help produce oxygen and absorb CO2. The issues of the future are very worrying because today, if we do not act, the Mediterranean will continue to heat up due to the environmental warming, we will have bigger and bigger waves. Therefore, we're going to have to learn how to do things a bit differently. We're going to have to avoid the pitfalls of just simply building flood barriers, which don't necessarily help and are not necessarily particularly effective. We need to learn to work more effectively with biodiversity and integrate it into human society. Everyone knows about pollution, but not just. We also need to learn to turn the tap off when we're not using it. We need to recycle plastic and avoid using plastic. I really believe in innovation to stop plastic pollution. Please be careful when you throw away plastic, you should not necessarily just remove all plastic. You need to get rid of single-use plastic. The thing is, plastic can be very useful. To protect the Mediterranean, we need large pipes, and these pipes are made of PVC. We also need to be very careful to do with fishing. The Mediterranean is extremely overfished, and there are many, many different ways of doing fishing a lot more effectively today. For example, sea urchins are sold more and more expensive, have a higher and higher price, but the thing is they're incredibly sensitive to parasites, which is something which is omnipresent in a place like the Mediterranean. Killing one sea urchin is killing 2 million potential new ones. If you therefore collect sea urchins from the Mediterranean, you are effectively killing 2 million other potential ones afterwards. You therefore need to think about nature much more carefully. How can we bring digital technology into the living world? Digital technology can help monitor the natural world. The thing is, people panic sometimes. They don't know where to go. We have sustainable development goals. We have people who come up with incredible innovations. And digital technology helps share this know-how with educational systems. It's really an accelerator. Digital technology is an accelerator. The thing is, we're just going to be moving on now after the very interesting information you've been giving us about the environment. And I'm then going to come back to Sarah, who was cut off earlier, just so that she can finish what she had to say. First of all, I have a question for Mohamed. The relationship between the biodiversity crisis and the destruction of biodiversity has, in a way, fostered the emergence of COVID. This is really one of the factors which has really brought about this crisis. In concrete terms, in your opinion, how can digital technology be a concrete solution to avoiding destruction of biodiversity in the future? How can we connect the living world and technology? How can we get these two things working on the same page?
Oui, je crois que vous êtes en muet.
I think you need to unmute.
C'est ça?
We can't hear you.
Est-ce que vous nous entendez?
Can you hear us?
Très bien, voilà.
Je vous entends, oui.
Voilà.
Okay.
Merci Mohamed.
Thank you, Mohamed. Go ahead.
Donc, je disais, merci.
So, as I was saying, thank you very much for that very relevant question.
Parlons de la crise. Donc,
we're talking about the crisis. The coronavirus crisis is the manifestation of an imbalance in biodiversity. It is indirectly linked to this imbalance. We all know that there are food chains, there are biotopes, and relations between living things and between environments are very complex. And whenever you modify this complexity, man changes this. He's looking for resources. He's looking to exploit the ocean beds. He's looking to exploit sand. He causes changes, and this causes an imbalance in the biotope and in the environment, and this damages the environment. It causes problems. For example, if you cause the extinction of an animal species, the other species will become rampant. This species might be a carrier of a virus, which is very dangerous for man. Another example that illustrates this complexity is an example I like very much, which is the example of dust. Dust has had a huge impact on the Amazon, the development of vegetation in the Amazon. Who could believe that these tons of sand and dust and little grains full of phosphates, in fact, come from Chad? They cross the Atlantic Ocean to fertilize the Amazon and the soil of the Amazon, and they bring these nutrients which are missing. From what I've read, there are certain elements that are missing from this soil, such as phosphate and zinc. And all of these nutrients are brought over by these winds. If you change the desert, for example, you're going to modify that cycle. The best way of correcting these problems is to have a better understanding of these different cycles and complex relationships. Once you understand them, you can raise awareness and you can start to protect. How is digital going to help us do this? Digital increases our senses. It prolongs what we want to do. If we want to carry out monitoring, digital can help us do that through satellites. If we want to monitor the movement of wolves, for example, in a particular area, we have technology that enables us to follow the movements of wild animals. And as we can count different species. Technology also enables us to enter the world of the infinitesimally small, the level of a molecule or an atom or a microbe. Technology is a blessing, which is there, and if we use it in the right way, it will really help us to carry out monitoring of biodiversity, protect the biodiversity, to understand these systems better, and to carry out awareness raising through social networks and even different funds that must exist to help us develop biodiversity, essential for our future. Thank you very much. You've talked about awareness raising. Patricia also was saying that it's important to make people more aware of these issues, and I'd like to ask Amor this question. I'd like to ask this question. Today, Mediterranean populations are not always sufficiently aware of these issues of sustainability. We've talked about plastic pollution, for example. With digital and also through your entrepreneurial action, how can entrepreneurs become active players to accelerate this awareness, this realization around the issues of sustainable development in the Mediterranean, and how, and this is a little bit the title of O3Ds, how can digital help us to achieve sustainable development? We all know that ever since the UN conference in Istanbul in 1996, a very precise approach was developed, saying that sustainable development is based on 4 major pillars. The first is the environment, optimization of energy consumption, renewable energies, and recycling. The second is the economy, economic development that respects the natural environments from which the basic resources come, and also a profound transformation of international and economic relations to promote fair trade and the cancellation of the debt for poor countries. The third pillar is satisfy the essential needs of populations to prevent exclusion and to stabilize population growth and to control economic growth. The fourth pillar is participatory democracy, and citizenship. These four pillars have to interact and must be considered as a whole in all of the Mediterranean countries. Sustainable development is a local, national and international cause. This approach has been officialized and ratified by more than 100 countries, but we can see that many Mediterranean countries do not comply with one or more points of this approach. And this is what is preventing a collective awareness. You asked me how can digital make a contribution. Just let me come back to you in a moment on that precise point. Sarah Toomey is back. Unfortunately, she was interrupted earlier. I'd like to take this opportunity to hand the floor to her again. I think she has a problem with her connection. As she's connected at the moment, I'd like to take up this opportunity to hear from her. Sarah Toomey, are you there?
Est-ce que Sarah Toomey est là?
Is she there?
Parce qu'on m'a dit qu'elle a pu se reconnecter.
Somebody told me she had reconnected.
Oui, Sarah. Alors, Sarah,
okay, Sarah.
Ça va être très bref.
It's going to be very quick. You were interrupted while you were presenting the roadmap that the Presidential Council for Africa is presenting for the Sustainable Development Goals between Europe, the Mediterranean and Africa. How can we work more closely with this Presidential Council for Africa on our subject, which is to make the Mediterranean a kind of laboratory of solutions for sustainable development and for digital as an accelerator to find these solutions?
Le One Planet Summit qui aura lieu au mois de janvier.
It's the One Planet Summit took place in January. It will take place in this January. This is an important event where there will be political announcements, and in particular of an action plan for the Mediterranean to be exemplary by 2030. The idea of this action plan is to provide support. The French president, with his Mediterranean counterparts, is setting up favorable policies, and the idea is to have the participation of civil society so that this approach is supported at a more local level and at the level of the territories, and we're going to do this by proposing innovations. The first important date will be the Two Shores Summit in August. But before that, the One Planet Summit will take place in January, where we will have these political announcements. And again, at this One Planet Summit, we'll have an announcement on unprecedented mobilization of the private sector to set up support for the food production industry. The aim here as far as concerns startups and companies and research institutes and innovators is to see how we can reconcile the economic value chain to producing sufficient profits and the protection of the ecosystems and carbon sequestration, carbon capture. These are subjects that will be discussed at the One Planet Summit in January, so I'd like to encourage you to follow the One Planet Summit page on Twitter. And as soon as the invitation is published, you'll be able to participate and accept this invitation, and you'll be able to join the I Am Africa for agricultural productivity movement for Africa. And then the other major event we're preparing is the Africa-France Summit in July, where we are preparing major mobilization around the subject of entrepreneurship, innovation, the diaspora, and digital technology, and agriculture, sorry. Of course, when we talk about agriculture, we're talking about agri-tech. And once again, our council will be at the disposal of innovators in partnership with Emerging Valley and the whole of Samir's team to set up programs, to suggest ideas, and to make sure that innovators in the Mediterranean are fully represented at this France-Africa Summit. Thank you very much, Sarah. So we'll remember that one Planet Summit and the Two-Shore Summit as well in August. Thank you for sharing that with us. Before we come back to the prize winners of the AFD Digital Challenge, Jean-Marc, earlier we were talking about what should be doing in terms of water treatment and irrigation and pollution measurements. The digital technologies Ocean is developing has helped to resolve some of these problems. Today, from your point of view, at Ocean, what do you think are the major underlying trends in innovation in the water industry, particularly in the Mediterranean? Okay, I'll try to give you some illustrations of this with the private initiatives in Africa and in the region of Marseille. In Africa, I'd like to mention our figurehead company, Ocean, which was created by local SMEs in Marseille and only works in the Sahel region in Africa and wants to solve the problem of access to water for all. Today, Ocean is giving water to 120,000 people. This is twice the maximum capacity of the stadium we're in today, which isn't bad. And these are people who are very poor and otherwise would not be able to gain access to water, particularly bottled water, which would end up at the bottom of the seabed, as Patricia mentioned. So the major issue is that to provide access to water for the poorest amongst us. And the other challenge we wanted to take up is that we need to be innovative on three themes: rural development, to be able to work with local communities. We created 150 jobs in Senegal, working with women particularly. Also water treatment, of course, that's part of our core business. And there's also interactivity. So we put in IoT at the center of access to water for all. This is developed by a Marseille company, part of the SNEF group. This is how I see it. Innovation and digital innovation is at the service of the most noble users of water and energy, because of the water kiosks that we set up at Ocean are powered by solar energy. So people can avoid damaging the ecosystem. That's in the south. Concerning the north, I would like to follow on from what Sarah was saying about energy, because we are innovating in the area of irrigation to avoid wastage of water. Here we're seeing major innovations in the catchment basins, where we, by collecting data about agriculture and weather and the soils, we use this data to share it on the level of a catchment from the Alps to Marseille in France here. This is very important to prevent wastage. It's important for this data to be public, and here are our institutions in the south and north of the Mediterranean have a role to make sure this data is not confiscated by a private sector player who would only use it perhaps for their own benefit. On the contrary, we want it to be used for everybody's benefit, all users. And then I can see a second innovation where the Canal de Provence has been working a great deal. I think Sarah mentioned this earlier, or somebody else. I think it was Patricia. She was talking about the link between living things and digital. There's something quite extraordinary happening in Provence. Our friends in California are doing this too. We are listening to plants. We're asking, what do you need? Are you thirsty? This is an agricultural engineer talking to Samir. But we know what the plant is saying. This is what Patricia said. We know about biology, so we can get the plant to talk to us. For example, the sap in the trunk talks to us. So we ask the plant if it's thirsty. Only give the plant water if it's thirsty, if the plant is asking for it. And this is an incredible revolution that is taking place. There are fantastic companies working in this area on both shores of the Mediterranean who are working in this area. I find it very exciting because digital technology is satisfying essential needs, and that's really extraordinary. Thank you very much, Jean-Marc. I think that will inspire a lot of people when they hear this. Earlier, I was told that at the moment, more than 400 people are following us on the Live Event Maker platform. This is where the live stream is being made available. This is a sign. It is a roundtable that interests a lot of people. The environment, the living environment, local populations and entrepreneurs. How today the solutions have to be collective. And I think this plenary, as you see in English, is food for thought. As he says in English, it gives us a lot of insights. These 400 people have to go straight to the goal. This is the slogan of the OM football club, going straight for the goal. I'll hand over now to Isadora because we're coming in close to the end now, and I would like Amor and Ahmed give us their conclusions, and also Patricia, perhaps you could say a few words, and then we'll meet up again a little bit later on. But Isadora, the digital challenge, you can find the 10 prize winners on your website, I think, of the AFD. It's difficult to organize an award ceremony, but it was important to highlight the 2 Mediterranean prize winners with us today. And there is a program that the AFD is leading, and it's a program that is becoming very important. It's scaling up, which is Digital Africa, and the digital challenge that you've organized is part of Digital Africa. Can you say a few words about the sustainable development area? We've heard about Digital Africa. What can Digital Africa contribute in terms of sustainable development? And what kind of message do you want to convey concerning these 2 AFD Digital Challenge winners that are with us today? I'd like to react to what Jean-Marc was saying. I think what you said was very poetic when you talk about the living things and being inspired by living things and listening to the plant. The whole point of Digital Africa is to listen to entrepreneurs and to listen to what they need and to help them. So I think it's important to have an ecosystemic approach and to be inspired by these approaches to living things. We observe, first of all, then we try to give incentives and try to push, try to give water where needed and prune where it's needed. If we're carrying on using allegories from nature, in Digital Africa, the idea is to see how I can act as a catalyst for projects that provide solutions and that will be an inspiration proposed by African entrepreneurs, developed in African ecosystems. The idea is to observe these plants that are growing in Africa and to be very humble and to support them and listen to them and to see how we can provide them with leverage and help them with their development and being at their service. What are we talking about? This is 130 million euros of funding, but the funding is very important. When we say to entrepreneurs that the funding will come quite naturally, they find it rather irritating, but it's true, in fact. We have all of this support when we say to a company what we see on the continent, that a lot of entrepreneurs are very familiar with their field. They know their communities very well, but they find it difficult to develop a business case. These are important things to talk about, and the idea is to have something that is sustainable in the long term. The idea is to help the plant start to grow when it's a seedling, and then to enable it to grow and become a bigger plant, and then above all to be inspired by it. This is something we're convinced of. There are a lot of things being invented in Africa that can be an inspiration to everybody. The Digital Challenge is part of a series of programs and resources and actions that are deployed to help these African entrepreneurs to grow, these plants to grow. And the idea also is to have a very agri-tech approach. In other words, to use this approach to develop innovations and to work on the data too. We talk about digital, but what we see in Africa, that there is a lot of low-tech as well. There's a lot of low-tech companies that are very powerful and that can produce tremendous leverage for development. And I'd like to end also by saying that we believe very much in exemplarity. If you can get role models to develop and then you encourage others and inspire others, the idea is to enable these entrepreneurs to be part of a community, to be part of a family, to join a family where we are all in the same boat and we all want to remain alive. And to do that, we have to work together and work in the same direction. And we have to make sure that everybody contributes as far as they can, so that the ecosystem flourishes as much as possible. Some more agricultural allegories there. The idea really is to do that in Digital Africa, to use a ecosystemic approach, so that we can enable these African businesses to flourish and flower. Okay, we'll hand over now to two beneficiaries of this program, the two prize winners of the FDD Digital Challenge, accredited by Digital Africa. The final words from Amor, first of all, in one sentence. If you wanted to convey one message to everybody who's listening, there's a lot of people listening today and watching on live stream. Amor, if you have a few words to say, what would that be? First of all, I would like to thank the AFD for their support during this very difficult year, and for my startup friends and entrepreneur friends. I would like to say that one day we're all going to die. That's a certainty. We all know that's true. But on the other days, we must continue to live our dreams and persevere and be courageous and dare to change and keep persevering. And this can only be positive, and we must share, because there's nothing better for a human being than to share. Thank you very much, Amor. We need more and more of this kind of positive message, especially during this very difficult period that we're going through at the moment with the COVID. And then finally, Mohamed, perhaps your final words of hope for those of people who are watching and listening. What would that be? Microphone is muted again. You need to unmute.
Oui, c'est toujours comme ça. Voilà.
Sorry, yes. Yes, I'd like to take this opportunity. I have the echo again. Is that okay? Okay. I'd like to thank the AFD for this springboard that they've given us. Entrepreneurs know about the valley of death. Once you've been through this valley of death, as we call it, then you have perspectives and hope. In my case, quite honestly, I've been able to get through this difficult period by gaining access to the market. Today, thanks to PrevDev, we've been able to obtain this contract. And quite frankly, I'd like to say that it's really thanks to this springboard and this financial and technical assistance from the AFD. What I'd like to say to entrepreneurs, for those of you who are entrepreneurs, even innovations, even for politicians, has to play a key role in governance, in the projects and the quotas and the financing, because innovation is like a shortcut to a solution to many problems. When there's a problem, there's an opportunity, and the entrepreneur is an innovator that will find the link between the problem and the solution. So we have to encourage innovation. For those of you who haven't dared to innovate yet, they need to innovate. They should dare to innovate. It creates a lot of value. It creates a value chain. It's a fantastic thing to do. It's wonderful, not to mention the emotions and feelings that that remain with you. I'd like to refer to my friend Amor Sanoun. We have to leave a trace of our passage here on this earth. And people have left things for us, and we must do the same for future generations to ensure there is a continuity for future generations. So by preserving our resources, by preserving and finding intelligent solutions and creating well-being and joy for everybody. Thank you very much, Mohamed. Okay, we certainly need a lot of that kind of positive message once again. And of course, Sarah, just in 1 minute, please, because we are running late. I'll just give you 1 minute because it's important for us to hear you once more. What message would you like to convey? My message is that you have to have a communication strategy when you launch a project from the very beginning. My advice is to apply to be in the SIBC, apply to be in the different emerging valley events and the events, and follow what is happening, follow the latest trends. It's important to communicate effectively, to be contacted by the right results of journalists, incubators and investors who will then help you with your project, and then the sky is the limit. If you can't find the right resources in your country, sometimes it's difficult. I'm Franco-Tunisian myself. I know that in Tunisia, when you want to set up an innovation, it's not easy. So you shouldn't hesitate to look elsewhere. the Mediterranean and the world is open. If you can't find a solution in your country, you can surely find a solution elsewhere. Thank you very much, Sarah.